Greetings again from me, Sudip Bhaduri, your one and only host on the big Barton film show here on Barton FM online and on digital, repeated during the week, and now on YouTube as reruns. I hope you're all staying safe and following the guidelines. My thoughts are also with Prime Minister Boris Johnson, our great Commander-in-Chief, leading by example, and I do hope his recovery is going to be swift. So a listener tweeted me asking, what years will the show be covering during the lockdown? As you know, all the cinema outlets are temporarily closed. I use the word temporarily. So every week I shall be going into my movie time tunnel to a golden movie year. The films that hit the jackpot, the memorable, the news, the movie gossip. It's a good question, thanks to Diana in Hull. It will be, I've decided, as a time window, 1966 to 2016, so a good 50 years. I've already covered 1970, 1995 and 1982, and this week, well, let's go back to the start of my window, 1966. What were you doing? Were you even born? Were you a twinkle in your parents' eye? I was a bright-eyed 7-year-old primary school boy in Manchester. I remember it really well. And what was in the news? Well, Indira Gandhi became Prime Minister of India. Colour TV came to the BBC for the first time. Who can recall the first test card? Harold Wilson wins another sweeping victory in the political race. The Moors murderers were jailed for life. And do you remember the sad coal mining disaster in Wales, in Aberfan, which took the lives of many school children? And England, of course, won the World Cup against West Germany, 4-2 with a Jeff Hurst hat-trick. They thought it was all over. And will England ever win the World Cup again in my lifetime? Not sure. So what about the movie world? Well, Julie Christie was becoming the British movie pin-up girl. And she was gorgeous, wasn't she? And she'd won an Oscar for Darling in 1965 and a nomination for Dr. Zhivago in the same year. In 1966, she made a film called Fahrenheit 451, based on the book by Ray Bradbury, and her career would hit the dizzy heights the following year in Far From the Madding Crowd. Controversial Italian director Michelangelo Antonioni took advantage of swinging London in the provocative thriller Blow Up with David Hemmings. And what about my top films? Well, just missing out, Michael Caine, as we knew him then, as the irrepressible womanizer Alfie, and the brilliant repartee on screen and off with Liz Taylor and Richard Burton at their best in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Oh, and I'll also mention later in the show about a famous lioness. So here are my top three. At number 3, Fantastic Voyage, an absolute belter of a sci-fi fantasy. And it laid the foundation for many similar future movies, including the tongue-in-cheek Inner Space in 1987. This film starred Stephen Boyd, fresh from his success in Ben-Hur, Donald Pleasance, and one of the very first future sex symbols in Hollywood, Raquel Welch. So a medical crew and a specialised submarine are miniaturised to remove a blood clot from a high-ranking scientist, and they battle enemies in the bloodstream as well as a traitor within their ranks, and they only have a limited time before they will die inside. Incredible visual effects for its time, won several Oscars, a solid Cold War sci-fi. It was truly a fantastic voyage for the cinema goer. Number 2, A Man for All Seasons, made by Fred Zinnemann. Now, this is the director who brought us High Noon and Day of the Jackal. It starred the late, great Robert Shaw, Paul Schofield, an accomplished stage actor, Susanna York, Orson Welles, and a very young John Hurt. Based on the play by Robert Bolt, all about Sir Thomas More and his conflicts with Henry VIII, especially about breaking away from the papacy, and Henry wanted to be head of the Church of England. And a snivelling Thomas Cromwell, played by Liam McKern, puts the nail in More's coffin with accusations of treason. A vivid atmosphere, superb cast, colourful costumes, and Schofield won an Oscar for Best Actor in his first and only significant movie role. It was Best Film as well as Best Director. My number one film has to be the quintessential spaghetti western and one of the greatest movies ever made in my opinion, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, made by the legend that was Sergio Leone, a memorable score by Ennio Morricone, starred Clint Eastwood, Eli Wallach and Lee Van Cleef, set during the American Civil War, and three disparate drifters are after one thing, a buried box of Confederate gold in an unmarked grave. Now, this epitomised the skill of Leone, and Eastwood was on the up. It's the most violent of the Leone trilogy and depicts their mutual hate against each other. The climax is iconic, and the cheroot-chewing, poncho-clad, sombrero-wearing tough guy image of Eastwood set the platform for the tough guy cops in future movies. A powerful, pistol-packing 5-star for The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Now, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly was ranked number 9 in the American Film Institute top 100 films of all time. And one can see why. It may be a tad over long, but you can't get bored with every scene. The three chief protagonists, Blondie, Angel Eyes and Tuco, are clearly three of the most iconic movie characters in Hollywood. The photography, the sound and the superb direction makes this ineffably unforgettable. Hypnotic, operatic, sad, funny, gritty and brutal, and still arguably, in many people's eyes, the greatest western ever made. The worst film in '66, well, have you heard of Dr. Goldfoot and the Girl Bombs? And this preposterous title starred, of all people, the great Vincent Price, about a mad scientist who has robot girls assigned to kill NATO generals. Oh dear. And The Wild World of Batwoman. Now, Batman, the movie, was about to be released, and this happened. Let's move on, shall we? Movie music time here on Barton FM. I mentioned about a famous lioness. She was called Elsa, and she was the star of Born Free. And real-life husband and wife Bill Travers and Virginia McKenna play the famous Adamson couple who adopt Elsa. It's a lovely tale. It won Oscars for Best Song and Best Music by the late, great John Barry. Movie news from 1966. Well, 20th Century Fox struck gold with The Sound of Music in 1965 and had announced plans to release Dr. Dolittle, Camelot and Thoroughly Modern Millie in the years to come. Remember those films? And Oscars on the 18th of April. Best Film and Best Director, Sound of Music and Robert Wise. Best Actor was Lee Marvin as a drunken has-been gunfighter in the funny western Cat Ballou with Jane Fonda. Do you recall that one? I thought that was excellent. Best Actress Julie Christie for Darling. Best Supporting Actor Martin Balsam for 1,000 Clowns. And Best Supporting Actress, the very underrated Shelley Winters, who also was in Alfie, who starred in A Patch of Blue. We said farewell to Montgomery Clift, that rugged, good-looking actor who had worked with the best. Remember films like Place in the Sun, The Misfits, The Young Lions. And we also said bye-bye to the greatest silent stunt actor ever, Buster Keaton. Born this year included Jurassic Park star Laura Dern and Kiefer Sutherland. We also sadly lost the most famous animator entertainer of them all, Walt Disney, died aged 65. He had a tumour removed from his lung but suffered major complications and had a circulation collapse. His impact on the history of cinema was colossal. His companies are some of the wealthiest and his legacy is still living on. And Ronald Reagan, one of the most recognised actors then in Hollywood, became Republican governor of California, and he became USA president in the late 70s. And that's a take from me. I hope you enjoyed the show. Stay safe, stick to all the advice, enjoy the sunshine. The Good and Bad and the Ugly was my film of '66. Take care.